Commands are used to tell people what to do. Now this can be anything from bossing people around to simply giving them instructions. In Spanish there are lots of different ways to give commands depending upon who we're talking to. Here are 4 broad categories of commands. If we were talking to someone that we would address as tú, in other words a friend, a sibling, or someone like that, we would use tú commands. If we're talking to someone that we would address as usted, your boss, your teacher, somebody like that, you would use usted commands. If we're talking to a group of people, we'll use ustedes commands, or if we were in Spain, we would either use ustedes commands when formally addressing a group or vosotros commands when informally addressing a group. Now some of these categories can be subdivided. Here are those divisions. Now all commands have an affirmative form and a negative form. But for the tú commands, we have to do different things to the verb if it's an affirmative command or if it's a negative command. For the vosotros commands, it's that way as well. If it's an affirmative vosotros command, we follow one set of steps. If it's a negative vosotros command, we follow another set of steps. For usted commands, the affirmative and the negative commands are identical to each other except for the word no. And for the ustedes commands, we follow the same rules except we put a no in front of it. So those ones are a little bit easier to learn. But for the tú commands, again we've got one set of rules for affirmative, one set of rules for negative, and the same goes for the vosotros commands. Here's some example commands in English just to make sure that you've got a feel for what we're talking about. We have things like eat your supper, go to bed, take a seat, and come in. Again, these go from bossing someone around to politely giving a suggestion or directions. These are all affirmative commands because they are telling people what to do. These are also sometimes referred to as positive commands. Negative commands would tell people what not to do. Here are some negative commands in English. Don't listen to her, don't come in, don't sit there, don't leave, and so forth. So again, commands are used to tell people what to do and what not to do, and in Spanish we do have to determine who it is that we're talking to, who it is that we're giving instructions to, before we can decide how to form our commands. Future tutorials will talk about tú commands, usted commands, and ustedes commands.